Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to my first Planning and Development Committee meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9:35 a.m. And I'd like to call roll call. Vice Chair, Councilman Craig Cobb.
Here.
Member, President Tony Kuda.
Here.
Thank you. So I have brought all of you all together today because I want to do something different with planning and development. I want to have a real discussion with some of the stakeholders in Cleveland Heights and some of the people who are very passionate about things that we are doing and trying to do in our city. So I wanted to have a discussion regarding a group I would like to put together, and I am naming it the Technical Advisory Group. So, but before we do that, I'm quite sure everyone here does not know everyone. And so let's go around the room and introduce ourselves and give maybe a 2-minute background about who you are and what you do within our city. And I also want to recognize we have Councilwoman Gail Larson in the room as well. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm Larry Nowak. I retired several years ago. I spent 30 years running companies, industrial companies for private equity firms, and I spent 25 years pushing fast movers around the sky for the Marine Corps. And since I got involved, I have been active in working with a group called the Severance Action Group. We affectionately refer to it as SAG, which is focused on trying to transform the dying Severance Mall that we are sitting right across the street from.
My name is Greg Summers with Summers Development Group. It's my father, Rick. We're a family-owned, Cleveland-based real estate development firm. We've been developing property for 40 years in the Cleveland area. We've worked on transformational projects on the industrial side, residential, commercial. Also, he couldn't be here today. My brother, Ryan Summers, is the principal at PMC. He's worked with the city on the Top of the Hill project, Cedar Lee, Meadowbrook, and the Park Center. So we work together as a team. He does all the financing, incentives, the PPP stuff, and, And like I said, we work on the development side, collaborate with a lot of cities. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Welcome, Greg.
Yeah, and we're currently working with, we linked up because Mayor Guido referred us. We're doing some major projects in South Newcomb right now that they're real excited about.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Myra Orenstein. I am a 35-plus year resident of Cleveland Heights and had been the executive director of Coventry and also Cedar Fairmount. I have an advertising agency in the area, and I represent Cleveland Independence, which is a group of locally owned independent restaurants.
Calvin Singleton, I'm president of Calvin Singleton Associates Architects. Been in Cleveland Heights now for well over 35, almost 40 years. And currently a board member with Future Heights, which is, I guess it's CDC. So because of that, I've gotten into a lot of community projects that have been going on, the crowdsourcing, things like that, that try to connect community members to each other.
Excuse me, 1 second. Mike Unger is on Zoom. I just want to make sure you're able to hear us, Mike. Okay, thank you. All right, Alex.
Good morning. My name is Alex Pesto. I'm a principal with City Architecture. I'm also a Cleveland Heights resident in the Kane Park neighborhood. We are the design architects for the Cedar Lee Meadowbrook initiative that is under construction right now. And my focus is really on city planning and community engagement.
I'll turn that off. Bam. Sorry. Go ahead.
Craig Cobb, Cleveland Heights City Council member, Coventry resident. Prior to coming on to City Council, I was on the Planning Commission and served with Mike Unger for many years.
And everyone know I'm Davita Russell. I'm the chair of the new chair of the Planning and Development Committee, and have been living in Cleveland Heights for 49 years with my parents, and have been an activist around the state and Cleveland Heights.
And I'm Tony Kuda, President of City Council. I moved here in 1961 and have been here for most of the time between now and then. And I'm a proud Heights High graduate, and looking forward to hearing where this is all going.
Hi, I'm Harriet Applegate. I'm a 25-year resident of Cleveland Heights, quarter of a century. I'm also a member of SAG. I'm on the board of Future Heights, and I'm on the Charter Review Commission, and I'm here to make sure this city returns to its cutting-edge status in the state and the nation.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christine Pugsy-Ewan. I've been in a lot of things: corporate, education, teacher, politics, got into local government about 6 years, served as the building commissioner in a housing and building department for one of our local cities. And a year ago, I joined Future Heights as their executive director. And as Calvin mentioned, we are a community development corporation.
Good morning, everyone. Reverend Jimmy Hicks Jr. I grew up in Cleveland Heights, Oxford, Monticello, Cleveland, High School. We have had an insurance agency in Cleveland Heights for 23 years. Currently the pastor of Start Right Church in Cleveland Heights and the executive director of Start Right Community Development Corporation. We have rehabbed several homes in the Caledonia neighborhood. We built one and looking forward to building 4 more this year. We also are a 25% owner of a proposed 52-unit apartment building on Noble Road.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Keisha Allen. I'm the executive director at Home Repair Resource Center. We're located in the Noble neighborhood. It started 53 years ago by the Forest Hill parishioners from Presbyterian Baptist Church. And I'm happy to be here and learn more about what Vice President Russell has in mind for the city and this department.
So I'm Adam Winston. I am from Metro Health. As you know, we have a facility here in this community, so we're looking forward to stay engaged and see how things go and see where we can partner.
I'm Amanda Isaacson. I'm a local real estate investor here. I have 25 of the 2 and 3 unit multifamilies here in Cleveland Heights, primarily in the North Coventry neighborhood.
Very good. And Mike Unger?
Hey, good morning, everybody. So nice to see everybody. I'm going to do what's not considered very PC here because I'm not with you in person. I'll explain that in a moment and just give a shout out. It is so nice to see some folks that I adore that I haven't seen. You all know who you are, but Calvin, Myra, Alex, Craig, Jimmy, Davita, Tony, Harriet, and probably 1 or 2 that I missed. It's just so great to see you folks. Folks like you. Everybody knows what's in my DNA, and working with folks like you. And talking about things like planning and development in Cleveland Heights when I was chair of the Planning Commission, when I was on City Council chairing planning and development and all that are frankly the things that really get me fired up. So really happy to be a member of this and to do whatever I can possibly do. But wow, what a group. You wouldn't miss a beat without me, I can tell you that much. So this is just a great group. Congrats to Davita and Tony on putting something like this together.
Thank you so much. And I'm be remiss to introduce our staff back there. Please.
Alexander Director for Planning and Development, 3-year resident of the city in the Milton Taylor neighborhood, and here with
Brian Anderson, Assistant Director for Economic Development.
Thank you both for joining us. I'm glad you're here because I want you to kind of be a part and take notes and give me feedback. Thank you. And also, we have our Clerk of Council, Addie. She's over there, she's taking notes and keeping us all on task. So, everyone, did you all receive your agenda? Yes. So, I truly believe that it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to create a wonderful city that all of us wants to live in. And I truly believe with a collaboration of people who have an interest in our city and from different diverse backgrounds coming together around planning and development to partner with or to help or to lend a hand to the planning and development director and his staff to see how we can actually move the city forward in a positive and nurturing way where everyone feels empowered and welcome and every part of our city is being developed at a equal pace. So that's one reason I brought you together. I want you to give me some feedback on some of the things here that's listed as far as our agenda, to give me feedback to what you think, how we can move forward with a group. Some of you will be coming in and out of the group as needed. Some of you will be a stable balance of the group as we move forward. So, and then towards the end, I really want to hear from our CDCs. I really want to know, what are your goals for 2024? What do you envision your organization doing for this year? Okay, so what is TAG? What is a technical advisory group? And I don't think I need to read all of this to everybody, right? Right. Yeah. So I kind of told you what my vision is. So let's start with the first. Let everyone understand what TAG is. A specialized group of team conspired of different subject matters, experts, professionals who can provide technical guidance, advice, development, implementation, evaluation, and special plans or projects. The group will typically be comprised of, as I said, individuals with diverse backgrounds to evaluate and give objectivity to plans and projects that's happening and being developed in our city. What do you think of that rationale as far as the group itself?
Do you think of it as a sounding board for the Planning and Development Committee?
Yes.
And a kind of a permanent breeze or counselor kind of?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, and do you also think of it as having a counseling kind of role?
Yeah. We're going to close that door because it's not coming all the way across. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what you have envisioned for this.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this something where you would like for the group of people to be listening to on a regular basis what planning and development is doing as a committee, the three of you?
Correct.
And then spontaneously reacting, or do you want us to wait for requests for perspective?
What I would like to do is create a bi-monthly meeting where every other month we would come together. We would talk about what's happening as far as planning and development. We would try to put together a long vision plan of what the city looks like as a whole, to try to divide it up and say, okay, what areas do we really need to be working on? What do we envision for those areas? What are we hearing from the community? What kind of feedback we can give to our director and his staff of what the information he's giving us, because he's out trying to look for developers, he's out trying to find different things to make our city a vibrant city as well. And what we can do to help him and his department continue that search for economic development, maybe something with Severance, we know we're trying to do things with Noble and Taylor, with the Coventry area. We want to also partner with Metro Health. That's why I brought them on, because they are looking for areas that they can redevelop and they can add to the vibrancy of our city. I have two more people who are not here right now. I have a person who's going to be sitting on from Congresswoman Shontel Brown's office, who will be actually taking information and taking that back to her to see what type of federal grants or possibilities that we can get from our city. I will be meeting with the governor sometime in April or May. We're trying to figure out a date now, to talk to him around planning and development for Cleveland Heights and what we can get probably from the state. And so I want to make this something that where we have avenues to pull from grants, we can get resources. We have someone at the table who can take the information back to the heavy hitters, people who need to hear what's happening here, to bring in actual funding, money to Cleveland Heights. I also have someone from the Jewish community who also will be a part of this dialogue as we move forward as well. So does that kind of, yes?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you got a, I don't know if his question is. Now, when I was on council, this committee gave its directive, of course, to city manager. But, so how would this work in conjunction, with the administration? Does it lead to, will things that come up, let's say with severance, will it lead to legislation from this going to the committee of the whole for, legislation, or are we just giving ideas that will be passed over to the planning department? How would?
Well, I would look at this as I would look at when I was on Parks and Recs. When the community came to me and said they needed something or they wanted something, we looked at it. And from that point, legislation was created and moved forward. But we would want to be able to make sure we do that in conjunction with the city and with the approvals and the blessings of the planning director, so that we are all cohesive. What's happening and what I see is it seems like we're all over the place. It's little pockets of engagement and little pockets of groups that are in our community that are doing all kinds of different things. And eventually we all have to come to one table and figure out what do we want our city to look like, first of all. I mean, the people around this table will be able to tell us, and the community will be able to tell us that as well. What do we want our city to look like? What are we looking for? What type of development do we want? And what type of engagement do we want? So this is not about a plan that is for the next 5 years. This is about a plan that we create together for the next 20 years, something that's sustainable, that we can look at and it's not falling apart in 10 years, that we can look at and be proud of, wow, look what we've done together. And I just truly believe as a committee, it's Councilman Cobb, who's real good at planning and development, and President Kuda, but it's 3 of us. And the staff, how many staff do you have?
Well, between planning and housing and building, it's about 30.
So with his 30 and with us 17 coming together and actually talking and collaborating and filling out what the community is looking for, bringing them in, asking them what they're looking for, I think we can actually move forward on something. And I'm hoping that when we kind of come together and figure out what we want to do and how we want this committee to move forward, I'm hoping we get the blessing from the mayor to be able to say, oh, this is not a bad strategy, to be able to bring everybody together at the table.
Davida?
Yes.
Hey, just a quick flashback moment. Some of you in the room were on this committee, as was I. And this is going back 5-7 years ago. We got a loan from the Cuyahoga County Planning Department. I forget the gentleman's name. And we did long-term strategic planning and development work as a community. It was a diverse, broad-based group. It was a heck of a plan. And we certainly, in light of your comments, someone should be getting that out, dusting it off, and recirculating it to this group if that's the direction we're going, because we can certainly build off of some of that great work. It was a fantastic exercise. Best strategic planning I've seen in a long time.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that information. Yes.
And, to piggyback on Mike's comments, I was involved when Cleveland Heights had what was called a vision committee.
Oh.
And there was about 25, 30 people in the committee. And they came up with a pretty effective, thorough plan. Tony, I don't know if you were.
I don't remember that.
Were you there, Gail? Or part of that? What it was is it had like a 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. Similar to here, but a little broader, that actually was given to the city. Well, the city sponsored it.
Okay.
And much of what you're talking about was what was a part of that.
Oh.
So rather than trying to reinvent, as Mike's saying, build off of things that are in place. So maybe you'll be able to dust that off, because a lot of work went into that, and a lot of ideas came out of that in terms of parts of the city, how the city might be utilized, how you build different areas of the city, basically planning.
Okay. Was it a vision committee?
Yes.
And would you have that? You have that?
Yeah, so we have the 2016 visioning and then the 2017 master plan, which was prepared by the County Planning Commission, with a lot of input from a lot of people in this room, and we tend to update those things every 5 or 10 years, so we're getting close to 2016, 2026. Kind of dust it off. It is posted on our website. We can certainly circulate all that information.
Oh, that'd be great. Yes.
I hear that you're doing like an umbrella program that has a focus of what's going to be done now and down the road, but are you planning to drill down at all so that you realize what needs to be done now?
Yes.
For example, Hingetown just came up with some money from Project for Public Spaces, and they're closing off a street so that there aren't any cars there. There are a lot of things in Cleveland Heights, and I'm a huge fan of the city, but people are dissatisfied now, and I think that they're looking to government to make changes. And so if we can look at the overall picture and then drill down and isolate a few things that could be done quickly, then I think it would make the public very happy at this point.
You hit the nail on the head. Yes.
So, I'm hearing, I think, 2 really good things today. One is that there has been some work done, and perhaps we could, as part of this committee's work, review and update, which seems like a good place to start. Reverend Hicks brought up the practical question of, as a city council and a committee, and then as a council, what would we be doing with this information? And one of the things that came to my mind is, I've only been on council just a little over 2 years. We've seen 3 economic development projects, Cedar Lee Meadowbrook, I'm just talking about in the last 2 years, Taylor Tudor, and the Noble Station. And as Director Zandt and I have talked about at public meetings, these processes and are all different, really. Every economic development plan kind of has its own character to it. What I would like to see, and perhaps with the advice of this group, is to get some advice on council's process for reviewing economic development plans and timelines and so forth. I have discussed this briefly with Alex Pesta some months ago, but my concern is, as a legislator, is that we have something, this committee and council as a whole, has something in place where there's this wouldn't be something that would be codified, but some kind of agreement between council of what our expectations are on planning, the planning department's initiatives that do come in front of us, so that we're on the same page with the administration, and we're on the same page with each other as we review these. I can tell you that some of the processes in place have been vastly different, to the point where and I'm not speaking for the rest of the council right now, I felt like we better get on the same page with this, because it's going to be difficult for us to make judgments when there's enough of a disparity between the development agreements, the processes that brought us to those agreements, that it's difficult to judge. So that, I'm not saying that should be part of what this group does, but I'm suggesting maybe that could be of some assistance to council.
Way ahead of you.
Okay.
I've talked to Director Zamp, and the April meeting is going to be focused on processes of how do we engage the community around public purchase and private purchase. Some things that you have talked about is going to be on the agenda as well. I want to be able to discuss with Director Zamp to see how we will be able to fit in with what his vision is as well. Because I want to have an opportunity for our committee to talk with that department to be able to say, okay, what do you envision? How can we be helpful? How can we move forward? When it comes to creating legislation and we hear from this committee, then we will be creating legislation to actually enhance what we already have so that we move forward. But we want to have everyone on the same page so that we move forward together. Yes.
Just kind of to respond to Council President Kuda's comments, can you or maybe someone else on council kind of explain what council's current role is in the development process?
Well, I mean, we review what the administration gives us. That's really it. I mean, there isn't, we could, certainly refer anything that's given to us by the administration to the committee. And then, certainly our role is to ask questions and to research, but it depends on what we get and when we get it.
So when you say what, kind of in the context of this conversation, is that the development agreement, which is a legislative act? Is it a development proposal, which is a planning process? Like, that's what I'm trying to understand. When we talk about a consistency of process, I think that is overtly important. So that it is, when we talk about equity, there need to be equitable processes in order to deliver projects so that developer A and developer B are following the same formal review process. And I'm just trying to understand, in my understanding of kind of what the different roles of the different of groups and branches of government is, that council is legislative, so it's looking at a development agreement and a purchase. And there's an entire staff and planning department that is looking at more of the qualitative parts and pieces of a development proposal. And what I want to state is I'm very concerned that there's going to be this blending of the two that happens in council chambers, which is, in my opinion, not appropriate place for those discussions to occur.
Oh, okay.
I'm not looking to blend the roles. I'm looking to define them and make sure that the elements that go into this are clearly laid out in a methodical way. A lot of times we come in the beginning and the end. For instance, we get some type of memorandum of understanding, although it could be just in the form of a conditional property sale. So that's the front end. I mean, we don't actually put it together, but we review that. And then, the very end, but, we can attend planning commission meetings and architectural board review meetings to make sure that we hear what the concerns are. But the main thing is that council needs to be fully informed so that when we're at the end, I taught I'm a retired teacher. The highest form of thinking is evaluation. in what's called Bloom's taxonomy. You know, you look at identification and comprehension, those are the lower level. But at the top, when you're talking about evaluation, what you need to know to be able to do that is in a sense more than everybody else. And in order to do that, you have to have all the information you need. And that comes, and how that happens is by having a uniform and understandable process where you're engaged along the way. And if we're all on the same page about the process, and that doesn't mean directing, the legislative branch stepping out of their lane. It means having a mutual understanding of what that process is, and then the expectations fall into place once you have that. I hope that kind of clears that up.
I guess I'm listening to this and I'm looking at it through a much larger lens because I'd like to be a major player here at Cleveland Heights. How does this advisory committee not become biased, right? I have some things that I'd like to see, and I don't want to be advising in one direction, and this group of people they have their own agenda that may conflict. How do we keep our perspective much broader and look at it as a collective as opposed to our own individual interests? Because I have some interest, and I'm pretty certain that everybody here has some interest. So, I mean, how is this group going to be remove those biases?
Yes. Well, the intention was to bring you all together just to discuss having a structure, something in place. But if you remember when I said earlier that some of you will be coming in and out of the process. So everyone won't be at the same table at the same time, because it may be something that, say, the director may say, we're looking for developers for some areas in Cleveland Heights. We may just invite all developers and figure out what and who would like to develop different areas of the community and what their interest is, what your interests are. And then the people who are not developers, we run that past them to say, okay, this is what we've come up with. These are the people who want to develop. Let's have a discussion on that. And then we may have people to say that, I have a plan to create a beautiful building. And then we bring together the architect experts around to say, oh, this may work, this fits in with the community. But also always having the director a part of that conversation. So I don't want it to be separate, because I want the director to feel comfortable with whatever information that he wants to lend to give us, and that by law he can in public, to be able to do that, for us to kick it around and to actually help and assist him as well. Yes.
So as I'm listening to all the things that are being said, it occurs to me what maybe the crux of this is where does the buck stop? Who's going to make the final decision in whatever planning? We have a community or investment or improvement corporation trying to get up and running. They would have a piece of this. There's the council that looks at a piece. There's the administration that would have to manage, and anything that we come up with, you're asking staff then to come up with a way to implement what we may want. But what my frustration has always been is, who do you ask? Who do you get the final decision from? Who's making those decisions? And that's not always clear. And I think all of us who want to put time into this, or are going to sit around a table and give our time, want to know that whatever we come up with would be heard, and by whom, and who's going to say yes and who's going to say no, and how that's going to work, and who they're going to go to.
So the next step is the meeting in April. We'll be talking about process and all of those elements with the staff, and to gel all those pieces together. But I want it to be able to be open and upfront of what a vision I have of all of us kind of coming together and then work, once we are all on board saying, yes, I think we can do something together, then work with the director and his department and his staff and the mayor to see how we can, where the buck stops. When we come together with something, who do we, as far as I'm concerned, it would be the director, and then the director would take it to the mayor. Am I somewhat right in that chain of command?
Council could say, well, council could say no.
It's a shared responsibility.
It's a shared, yeah, it's a shared,
It really is.
but I'm saying that, once we're here with it, then we will discuss it with the staff, and hopefully the staff or director would be a part of these discussions as well. I don't want him to be a separate group. I want him to be a part of discussions of that to make sure that we move forward and where we know where the buck stops. So all of those questions are coming. Those answers are coming. Yes, those answers are coming. But I just needed to know if people were willing to maybe participate in something like this to move the ball, roll the ball forward.
Could I make one comment about Mr. Watson's question? I think there's going to be a natural Winston. I wrote it down wrong. No, I wrote it down right, but I didn't put my glasses on. It looks like, and this is preliminary, we're just kicking this around for a half an hour, that there'll be a natural kind of check and balance with, whatever your interests are, not necessarily the interests of the rest of the group, so they'll review it probably in a pretty unbiased way, I would think. I think that the chairwoman would want everybody to be, brutally honest with each other about whether or not the ultimate initiative was in the best interest of the city. I think you're going to just kind of naturally get that with a well-rounded, diverse group that the chairperson's put together here.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that's not going to be. I think that working with a lot of individuals with RFPs and all these different things, we all get involved in these particular groups for various reasons. I guess I was hoping that maybe from a much larger standpoint that we'd be looking at how the town is going to be looked overall, how these partnerships would interact with the community. I know Metro Health definitely, we want to live in Cleveland Heights, so anything that we do, we are biased.
Yes.
There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We have an agenda. I am here because I have an agenda, and that agenda is to be a major player and partner here in Cleveland Heights. So we have the architectural firms, and you have different other individuals and developers and investors. They may want a piece of property that I'm actually interested in acquiring, and I guess my concern is, as a group, as a collective, even though I think that everyone is going to do their best to look at it from a broader picture, we all are selfish, and
that's true.
I am incredibly selfish when it comes to protecting the brand of Metro Health and making certain that my partnership here in this town is in my interest here in this town is protected. So I just, hopefully my desires don't conflict with anyone else's as we move forward.
It seems to me that the comprehensive plan and the previous studies that were done should be relooked at, and is that the direction that the city wants to go? And I think you'll resolve some of those conflicts if that plan is the guiding plan, or if it needs to be updated to the city's vision.
Let me go to Mike Unger. You were part of that group. Can you give us a little bit of information how that group worked?
Sure. The first, I'll just weigh in here. I think there's great conversation. And Tony, I don't know whether I ever would have lived up to your aspiration, the highest form of thinking, but let me just tell you what I did when I was chair of planning and development. I made sure that I had my fingers on the pulse of what was going on in the city, and that could be both anecdotal and reality. And I have no idea what's going on currently, but I thought our then existing administration was pretty good about making sure that I had a packet of materials as chair of P&D that told me everything I wanted to know, and oftentimes more than I wanted to know, about what was going on at two levels. One was BZA, and the second was planning and development. And if I had questions, I had the ability, without any encumbrance whatsoever, at least I felt so, to pick up the phone and call for, if it was on the planning side of things, Jessica and I might have a conversation about it so that I was clear on what was going on. Going back a step before me, and this was perhaps a better, and I don't remember who it was, I think it might have been Len Horowitz or Wilcox. There was a time when the demands of being on council weren't what they were during my era, or people were willing to give more time than I was willing and able to give, where, and Craig may remember this, where a member of council showed up to almost every one of our planning and development meetings. They'd sit right over off to the right, and they were welcome to be in the room, and then presumably they'd go back and they'd report to council. The other thing that I did when I was chair of planning and development, and there are plenty of witnesses to this in the room, was I wasn't afraid to talk to our wonderful CDC directors. Myra Orenstein knew how to direct dial me. I knew how to direct dial her. And when she needed me, I like to think I was there. I felt like I was, relatively plugged into to that scene. And then the other thing that I was plugged into, and God bless them, because my view was then, and I doubt things have changed, was, organizations like Future Heights was a bunch of folks who were nothing but do-gooders who wanted to see our community do better, because the proverbial, rising tide lifts all boats. And so I attended as many of those meetings, and Future Heights then, I don't know, I've been away from it for a while. Future Heights had a very, very active and engaged development committee that I and oftentimes other members of council were oftentimes, I think we were always invited to attend. And I attended as many of those meetings as I could. And I remember Mary Dunbar did as well. So there were all sorts of ways to plug in to this thing. But I agree with what somebody who was probably being a little bit PC and how they said it, and said it better than I did before, which is, my view is I did all those things because I didn't think they were welcomed. I knew they were welcomed. I knew that kind of engagement and activity was welcomed and would hopefully lead to positive development along the lines of, whether it was the Top of the Hill project, the Metro Health project, and a bunch of other things, the Arco dump, and a bunch of other planning and development things, some good, some not so good, that were happening throughout our city. So I don't know the current lay of the land, but I agree with whomever said it, and I understand this is above my pay grade right now, but we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is not falling on deaf ears. I don't think we should be, and I don't think we are, wasting anybody's valuable time here. I mean, if the administration doesn't want to hear from a committee like this, then, I would just ask, them to say so and let us know that up front. I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't want to cast as broad a net as possible and get as much input as possible from folks who know what they're doing. And then the other thing that I just want to say, for those that were, and thank you for giving me the opportunity, Davida, for those that were slightly concerned, we'll take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, et cetera, because I'm really representing a constituent interest here, et cetera. I never found that to be a problem at all. I always knew when people were wearing multiple hats. And I appreciated the disclosure, and I appreciate it once again. But when I was dealing with the folks from Metro Health, for example, there was no concern on my part that there was misalignment. Of course, they are pursuing their best interests in what they are attempting to do in Cleveland Heights. That goes without saying. But it doesn't mean that in so doing, they aren't acting as good community soldiers, as good neighbors, and helping us help that proverbial tide rise and lift all boats. That's the way, and I don't mean to just pick on Metro Health. I know Alex Pesta is in the room. I know Alex had an interest in doing some architectural work, but also hailed from our planning commission where I knew, et cetera. So it's okay to have dual hats. Jimmy Hicks is doing development for us, God bless him, down in the Noble area. I mean, it's okay. I think if we excluded people like that, we would be cutting off our nose to spite our faces. That would be a bad move, in my view, to say, the only way you could possibly be on a committee like this and representing the best interests of Cleveland Heights is if you have no vested interest or your employer has no vested interest in Cleveland Heights. I wouldn't draw that line at all. I don't think any of the people who are on the committee who come from that background should be at all defensive about it. We know who you are. We know what you're about. And God bless you for your willingness to serve, not the other way around. And then now, David, I forgot give me the specific question that you're asking me.
Tell us a little bit of how the previous committee worked.
Yeah. So look, we would have committee meetings every once in a while. I'm going to bifurcate that question and answer it two ways. One is, how would it work with respect to, the day in, day out? It's pretty much as I just described. I would do a lot of fact gathering information. Richard Wong, who was Eric's predecessor, and then Eric, I thought were both magnificent in terms of getting me the information that I felt that I needed to have on a timely basis in order to offer the input. Now, the difference, of course, and it is a totally different show these days, is in those days, I would have been a member of council that was the boss of the city manager, who was their boss. So that gave you a certain imprimatur, if you will, of credibility, authority, power, whatever you want to call it. But I felt that it was a very, very collaborative process, and I hope they feel the same way. They can speak for themselves. And I just felt like it was a very, very natural process. And were we effective? We were moderately effective, but and plenty of room for criticism of what didn't get done. But I thought it was a modestly effective approach. Those that know me know that when we got into some of the bigger projects, use Top of the Hill as an example, I formed a larger committee to some's happiness and to some's dismay because I didn't feel that we were well equipped as a city to fully process all the issues that were going on, again, using Top of the Hill as an example. And we had multiple open community forums that were being run by the Planning and Development Committee of Council. I would chair the forum somewhere at the community center, somewhere where did we have them?
City Hall.
Some of you were there.
Craig says.
Anyway, doesn't matter. And I thought that they were effective. They were smaller working group sessions. You'd go around the room and you'd get a little bit of, the criteria there, from my perspective, was that we had people on that committee who, unlike myself, actually knew and understood some details of planning and development. I'll pick on Calvin because I remember selecting him for that committee. In other words, in order to have a seat at that table, you had to know something about architecture, or you had to know something for real about planning and development. And I felt that helped us. While it was a little bit of a more arduous process, I thought that it helped us in the long term. Hindsight will be the judge of this. Get to a better place what Top of the Hill ultimately looked like. We did have some discussion during some of those smaller discussions about the financing package, because as those that remember it will recall, there were some complexities that existed then and exist today along the lines of TIF financings and other things along those lines. So we tried to work those things out again in a small group format. So, and then I would report to council. And again, I thought it was a very collaborative process. Council, I think I was officially designated not only as chair of the Planning and Development Committee, but council would say, yes, we want you to be the liaison on the Top of the Hill project and report back to us. So again, it just led to more collaboration. But collaboration is the name of the game. This thing goes nowhere with wind in our face. We need to have wind in our at our backs at all times. This has to be invited. This is everybody, again, you just look around the room there, and these are all a bunch of folks who are about getting things done and getting them done for our city in different ways with different viewpoints, to be sure. But you got to be willing to tap into it and take advantage of it. I think our city is just loaded with riches of vast resources, particularly in this area. I forget, somebody gave me the number of world-class architects that we have living in our city is amazing. The number of planning and development people that we have is impressive, to say the least. And we just need to, and they're willing to help. Imagine that. And we, as you're doing here, Davida and Tony, we just need to, and council, we need to tap into it. And it's frankly up to others as to whether they wish to tap into it. But it's maybe a difficult conversation that needs to happen. Hopefully not with this committee directly involved.
Thank you very much, Mike. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay. Just real quick, it's just, and I'm familiar with the processes that Mike was talking about and the visioning, but I guess what would be our role in helping you as legislators, get legislation done for planning? I mean, ultimately, that's why we would be here, because that, and so we would need to know, what is it that you can do as legislators in the area of planning? I mean, because we could come up with all kinds of great ideas, and as our gentleman from Metro, I was talking about, we have some selfish ambitions, and we know that in a lot of those, we're going to have conversations with the planning department, and so those would not be conversations we would have here. But here we would be trying to work on some things that could be done legislatively that could help processes or things, not complaining, but saying, hey, it would be great if, there was this, or there was a quote, or there was something that came by legislation that the city had to do regarding planning that's not here anymore. I mean, that's not here right now.
Yes. As council, we're able to create all legislation along with the mayor. So anything that comes up in a committee like this, and we look at where there is a problem, which we have identified several times around community engagement. How does the community engagement process happen across the board for any development? We don't have that technically in place. That would be something that we could talk about and say, you know what, let's create legislation on how community engagement happens for public property as well as private property when people come in to purchase it. How is the community engaged in that form? And we can create those things. Anything that's legislative, that's dealing with planning and development, that's not already or needs to be enhanced or critiqued within the charter or the ordinance, we have the ability to do.
Is there, kind of related to that, if I may, what is the formal review process right now? Like, isn't that, from a planning and development standpoint, doesn't that occur through the Planning Commission and other boards and reviews that are in place?
What, legislation?
No, not legislation, but the qualitative aspects of a project. When a project gets reviewed, isn't there already a process that's in place to do that?
Yeah. Yes, but
Is it meant to compete with that? Is it meant to replace that? Is it meant to, like, that's what I'm trying to understand what the role of this conversation and with this group is. If there's already a process that's in place,
Wouldn't the
what
planning
influence do we have
commission more be work along, like, well, the BZA is looking at any variances and things of that nature, but does a planning commission, you're looking at when a plan approval is submitted, if, I don't know, you Calvin, you said you were on the planning commission, correct?
I was on the
Okay, when I've been on planning commissions, we would get, plan approvals might go to the building department, but we would get plans, and we were looking at how that worked within our city, within our ordinances, with the community needs. Maybe there was an ABR process, which I think they have here. So I think it's those things that get to the planning commission is kind of like that final step before you're giving a final approval to build and go forward with the project. If that's the way I've worked with planning commissions, the way ours worked, which is different than we're creating or talking about what could be created.
Yeah, I just, a few comments from the developer side. For example, I had mentioned we tried to bring in the new all-day field theater site. I work with Brian, his department, a lot. And I think what he's asking is, this is a collaboration, and I totally appreciate what you're trying to accomplish here, but it's hard enough in any economic development project. It's probably harder than ever with cost, rates, the approval process, public engagement. It's super complicated, multi-year process. You want to be developer, quote, friendly for economic development, but you want to balance community engagement and everybody's vision for the city. But at the same time, are you creating another layer of complexity to the approval processes in place? That's what I'm hearing. Because it's already hard enough. When I came to Brian, I said, so do we meet with you? Do we meet with the mayor? Do we meet with the council people first? There's already gray area always in any city that you come into doing a development project, which is already a super complicated, time-consuming, and inefficient process, even if you have a good process in place. So I just think I think the balance between collaboration and clarity with the formal process of when, say that we wanted to work with you as a city and bring a new project in. I'm hearing, I don't want to, and I had mentioned this to you, I don't want to have a competitor across the table and then compete, but at the same time, you're trying to collaborate. So I think there's just those two things, another layer of scrutiny or inefficiency and your competitor sitting across the table and balancing what you're trying to accomplish here with all that from the developer side is what I think is important, because it's already a hard enough process. Even if you have a good process, as you know, even on the architecture side, it's very hard to get anything approved. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
And what triggers?
And I was actually answering Pastor Hicks' question. What can we do as legislators? And so I was answering the question of anything that is in the ordinance or in the charter that needs improvement, need tweaking, need fixing, need maybe creating, because it's not in place, or we don't have it, or we may need to look at it. Those are the things that we can do to help the process be smoother. So that's the question I was answering. Yes.
You bring up, I think, one of the most important things for this city is, we want this city to know that we are open for business. We have 7 people on council who are completely pro-development council people. We have an administration that's very focused. This is the most focused I've seen any modern administration on economic development. So those are the 2 good things in place. And so creating any kind of barriers or, anything that would make a developer think twice about doing business here, we don't want to do that. We want.
But I didn't mean to imply that.
No, but what you said is requires, I want to make sure that our message is that clear. To Alex's point about the Planning Commission, my understanding is that make sure that the plan that's in place follows our code, and that it's, and I don't think that that's the layer that, and this is a question that I'm gonna ask you, because if there is some expertise that we can get that could help us in our deliberations, that maybe that's where they can help us, in review and so forth. I mean, I understand, because the planning, because maybe there's something that we're missing that doesn't have anything to do with compliance, but something where if there were some modification made, it would be better for the city than the plan that the planning commission's looking at, even because their job isn't to enhance a plan or even modify it, really. It's just, does this work?
Go ahead, Calvin.
It does, but it's through your architectural review board.
Right.
And planning commission.
Especially if you,
Planning commission.
Yeah, but I was talking about the planning commission in
well,
particular.
even with the planning commission, if you have to get a variance based on not complying.
So I, in full transparency, did serve on planning commission in Cleveland Heights, and there were a lot of conversations, probably more than I want to have, about the qualitative kind of aspects of projects that came before the planning commission. So that is an arena to have feedback and high feedback. It's also a public meeting, and so folks should, if they are concerned residents or citizens or business owners or institutions, that's a place where they can show up and voice an opinion that they either felt that they were well respected and communicated with or not. But the planning commission is a board that is in place where I would hope that there's a level of expertise that's represented on that commission to be able to not only react to the staff report that looks at it more from a technical aspect of from compliance, zoning code, signage, all the stuff that it has to meet per the codified ordinances, but also there are other mechanisms such as conditional use permit and other suggestions and things that come from planning commission that can improve the quality of a project. And so I'm going to restate what I think I said before, is that there are mechanisms, there are processes that are in place, and instead of adding or supplementing those, maybe those processes need to be looked at and see who serves on those boards, who serves on those commissions, and keep that in place rather than completely upsetting the entire kind of ecosystem of how projects get moved through.
Yeah, I don't know if you're all feeling this way, and maybe we're not to this point yet, but it's what does the city want to see in development? What is the goal? So I met with somebody who said, Christine, what does Future Heights want to see in housing? And I'm like, well, I explained we want to protect the housing stock. We want to, get the vacants rehabbed, et cetera, et cetera. But we're here to support the city. We're here to support your vision, the administration's vision. Hopefully that vision came about with community input and looking at all the things that we have available to us. What are our marching orders? What is our goal? Because we could sit here and we could talk code, we can talk process, we can talk all these different things, but essentially, why are we here together? What is it that we can help the city achieve? And to me, it sounds like that's the simple, that's the goal, that's the core of it. But I think we could start going down many, many rabbit holes depending on what we were interested in or what our interests are. So I think what I would need, or what I would like to see, in my opinion, is how can we support you? How can we support the city? Because ultimately, that's what you're going to ask your staff to do, is to implement those ideas and that buy-in and all the things that come together to do that. So I guess the question is, why are we here? I know what a tag is, I explained it. I know why you think this is a good idea, but essentially, what are our marching orders? Because we do have plans that are on the website that I think most of us know about and have reviewed.
Well, I know we just got to the first part. I don't think everybody had the opportunity to go through the whole thing to see what the goals, the roles, the long-term visioning, any of that as of yet, because we kind of got stopped on all of the plan. But the vision and the purpose is to actually get together, find out from you, are you interested in coming together and working together to help move the city forward? The next step would be for the Planning Commission to meet with the Planning and Development Committee, with the mayor, and find out, look, we have a group that we would like to use as an advisory group, as a tag group, to help move the city forward. How do we interchange each other? How do we work together? How do we move the city forward? Because as of right now, I have not brought in the director to, that's why I'm having him here, hopefully, to listen, to give me feedback on what his thoughts and plans are of how we move forward. So then when we come together in May, we will be able to have more of a answers to some of your questions. But here is more of an initial conversation on organizing something where we can all come together and say, hey, how do we help the planning and development director department, the mayor, and the residents of Cleveland Heights move Cleveland Heights forward in a progressive, inclusive way. So I guess this is to get buy-in, to say, hey, this is worth putting some time in to see where it goes. We can't make no promises as of right now, but we can put in an effort. And once we talk with the Planning and Development Department and Director, see what's his fancy far as how do he see us moving forward to help him, because I'm quite sure they would love all the help they can get. And I'm saying that, I'm not saying they are, but I mean, why wouldn't people want additional help from people who have different expertise and who have arms and voices into the community? And who wouldn't want Metro Health to develop more? Who wouldn't want the CDCs to do more? We just got to find that avenue of how we do that. And that's why we come together, to see how we work together to build those bridges, create those avenues to have a better city so that we're all invested. Because I believe you, Greg, you do infill housing, right?
Correct.
And I think we talked about some properties over in the Taylor area. And I know Pastor Hicks do infill housing over in the Caledonia area. So those are two separate areas. And as President Kuda, when we had our meeting with the mayor, he said anyone who is interested in building or doing any work within the city, please fill out, what did he say? Please notify them of.
The administration wants to know.
They want to know. They're looking for developers, or am I correct, Eric? Say something over there. Correct? Yes, you're looking for developers. You're looking for opportunities for people to come and say, yes, this is what we want to do here. And so I think all of those doors is open, but I know with our CDCs who need to and should work closely with the city as well, we need to find an avenue of how we do that as well, and partner. And I just want to know if we have buy-in to continue something to move it forward. Sure, there's going to be kinks that we have to work out, and that happens with anything that you start. You just have to work through it and say that we're going to be committed to see what we can do.
As a follow-up to what I mentioned before, now if there is a mechanism where you could come in and engage with members of council and not, a lot of times we'll just inquire to the planning director or the head of planning department, you have a one-on-one meeting. Mm-hmm. If there is a mechanism or a committee where you could have early discussions with multiple members of council or whoever is on, that committee, mm-hmm. on the city side, mm-hmm. that's a great tool. Okay. So
See, that's an idea that came up right now that.
Typically, we just call in and we'll just meet one-on-one with the planning director, depending on what the city is.
Mhm.
If there was the availability to engage early on, like a committee like this,
Yes.
we have multiple members of council, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, I will make a note of that.
Other thing that I think you have to adjust as you go, for instance, in South Euclid, we expect to bring at least 100 market rate houses to the city in the next 36 months. One of the things they did is,
I saw that. That's why I called you.
in a quick example of what they did there, they also have an architectural review board. A lot of these houses, they're not all the same in a row, but they're the same throughout the city. So why go and take the ARB's time every month for the same house? You're approving, and we're working with a tract builder, Ryan Holmes happens to be the first builder there. So why go to ARB every month for the same plan and stamp it? So what they're looking at doing, Greg, you handle it.
Well, it was an example of having to alter the process because they never had a big influx of 131 infill lots being developed all at once. So we had to collaborate with the administration and, it wasn't the typical process. So bringing that kind of volume, we had to collaborate and they had to be open-minded and altering their process a little bit for the sake of everybody involved.
Yeah.
But that's just one example of, and all projects are different, as you guys know. Like the top of the hill, there's so much that goes into it. I don't think there's just one process you can follow. They're so fluid that you almost have to adapt. You guys know the complexity of the projects that come up, but that was an example though.
Yes.
But my original point, if you can engage early on with a committee like that, it would be really helpful.
Okay. Craig, you're so quiet.
No, I'm just soaking it all in.
Okay. Anything else? Just give us a synopsis. What are you hearing? Are you willing to buy in for a while to see where we can go with this?
Absolutely. Sure.
Yes?
And I would just add that, I think a good evaluation of what's already in place, both, like what Alex was talking about, and those roles, and a kind of an evaluation of that. And then an evaluation of the plans that Mike Unger and Calvin talked about, that have already been on place, what's on the website and so far, and then reviewing that with the.
And we can review that all together.
I think that will help define the role that, you're looking for this committee or this, tag, what did you call it?
Tag,
yeah. Yeah, the group, yeah. To play. I think that we should do a little bit of research and evaluation of this meeting and what was said here. And review.
Well, definitely what Mike Unger said is dusting off the old plans and looking at them since the director has already told us that will be coming up for some review and looking at again. Yes.
Quick question. Is it Alex?
Correct.
Great. So in terms of what he was just saying, to me, that's a perfect example. Is that something that would then be brought, to this legislative committee, that you could make a legislative change in terms of ABR? Because I'm quite sure, ABR might have some, might be codified, may not, I don't know, in terms of how they do each house. And so it may not be just easy to say, okay, this is approved, it's approved for all the lots, because there may be some language that says each house has to be, each design has to be brought for each project. So then at that point, reviewing something like that, and then, you change it legislatively. I'm not sure, I'm just asking, because that sounds like, to me, that's like a perfect example of what could come out of this committee. In that way, it's not in competition with the city, it's making things better for people trying to do business with the city. With the administration, not the city. You're all the city, but administration, legislatively.
And let's be clear, I don't want this to be in competition with the city. I'm with you all. I want this to be a partnership with the city and to be able to enhance whatever the vision of the city has to make things better. And that is a great observation and something to look at as well as we move forward, to say, hey, these are things that are broken, these could be fixed, or these are some changes that could actually be made legislatively.
Yeah, I think this could be a really great place to share, because I know it's not time for CDC to talk, but I feel like I have to say that Future Heights just received $100,000 in ARPA funding to do just what you guys are talking about, and that is to come up with pre-approved designs for homes that fit in the lot and what we would have to do to the zoning code, looking at what may need to change to fit the modern home, what lots would be appropriate, what design fits in the right kind of neighborhood, et cetera. So we've received ARPA money to do that, and we're starting that process. So that's something you all would need to know, right?
Yeah.
You need to share that.
That's a great point. The other thing too, like he talked about protecting interests. You know, on the flip side, there may be networking opportunities with the people that aren't associated with the city. So, you know, it's more of a collaboration. I mean, the last 20 minutes have been helpful, because I think we were all over the board and trying to think about how do we add value.
Yes.
So.
And I think it will come as we move forward. I mean, anything you start comes with stumbles, you know, and we figure it out as we go. But I think if we're all dedicated, we all want to do well, we want to be able to help the vision of the city move forward, I think it's worth us, you know, digging in and trying to help move the city forward in a partnership.
Very good meeting. Thank you for the invite.
Well, I'm very glad you all came, and I'm very glad that you all are willing to be some stakeholders right now. As I said, the group will get slightly bigger. If you are, I do want to hear, and this is going to be your time to share, you three. And Amanda, I know I didn't ask you, but I would really love for you to share with the group too a little bit about what you see for the Coventry area.
Well, we're primarily, you know, all of our development and stuff has been in North Coventry, and we've really not had a lot of involvement from the city or anything, but we're just kind of chugging along and doing our thing. But yeah, we would love, you know, some direction on what the vision for that, and input on what the vision for that neighborhood and any development going forward is going to look like.
See, and it goes back what Myra said as well. As we come together and start discussing, then we can narrow down and target into different areas and say, okay, what do we need to change? What do we need to update? And I know, Director, he has been talking about changing a lot of codes because our codes are very much outdated, and we need to move them forward to the new century. So he's been working diligently on trying to get that done. So hopefully that will open up a lot of things, because I have a dream of tiny homes for our seniors who want to stay and live in place, because most of the homes in Cleveland Heights are 2 stories. And I understand a lot of other cities are looking into that same fashion as well.
Are you doing conversions or existing home rehabs or multi or what?
Yeah, but pretty significant construction.
Gotcha. Because I think an interesting case study is going to be, you know, how do you preserve existing architecture where the aging housing would evolve? You know, we can't manufacture new land, as we all know. So what we learned in South Euclid, and I think we're going to see it everywhere, you know, how do you adapt? And how do you turn over aging housing supply and bring people into the city and adapt for senior housing? You and I talked about that.
Yes.
So that'll be an interesting case study, I think, that we can all discuss too. Because I think that's an ongoing thing that nobody has the answer for, even on the architectural side. I mean, we don't know that yet, what it looks like. But it's definitely going to take some collaboration on, you know, the codified ordinance side, and there's not a one-size-fits-all code for what we don't, you know yet. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
And zoning changes just for tiny homes, you know, that's going to be something that the director is going to be looking at, because of so many people are talking about it. And container homes, people are asking about those as well. So there's a lot of different things people are asking for that we're going to have to change to modernize our city codes that they're already looking at. Yes, Larry?
Will you be sending out a attendee contact list?
Yes, I will. I definitely will do that. And could you would like to start with the update? Give us a update on what is Future Heights' goal for 2024?
Well, I'll just talk about it as it relates to planning and development, because Future Heights does support a lot more than just planning and development. But how we see our role or our part in the city of Cleveland Heights is to protect our housing stock, our current housing stock that is distressed, that is deteriorating, that is vacant. And how do we do that? We do that through rehabbing vacant properties. We would like to work with a lot closer with the housing and building department. I know the building department is something that's being built, and especially our court system. For example, when we went to the judge, said we're here, who we are. When there was a couple that came through that had a vacant house and was going to court month after month, wasn't getting any resolution, we were able to step in, get that house donated, get their taxes eliminated so that then we can rehab their home. So it's collaboration, really working closely with what already exists, and working with partners. So for example, if we're in a neighborhood, we've got a vacant house, we see some other vacant houses nearby, we now have the funding to acquire those houses so that we are not just transforming one house all, kind of sporadically through the city, but a neighborhood. And then therefore working with the people who own homes who may not be able to fix a roof or whatever, being able to connect them with resources like Keisha's group, so that or whatever grant program we may have in the city so that they can get it repaired. There's no sense in rehabbing and creating this new home that someone might not want to buy because the rest of the neighborhood is dilapidated, or you're looking at the dilapidated house across the street. So that's really our goal. We want to protect our housing stock. The way we've done that is we formed, Mike mentioned our development committee. It's changed a little bit. We call it Future Homes and Revitalization. That is filled with all the talent that he's talked about. Sitting on that committee, we've done a lot of group about targeting where the vacant properties are, all the things that go into that. We know a lot about the properties in Cleveland Heights right now with the work that we're doing at Future Heights.
How many properties would you be looking at doing in 2024?
We have asked the city to funnel houses that they get. They currently own 16 to 20.
No. How many?
So whatever that is.
Whatever the goal is, what would be the total homes you would like to rehab?
I'd like to see it at 25 with us acquiring additional property.
Okay.
The other thing that I talked about was then we have funding to acquire property from ARPA. The other funding that we got, as I already mentioned, our goal is in 1 year to be able to have good designs that are pre-approved for various neighborhoods that would fit the style, that would fit, as you say, you can't always preserve. We like to see preserved as much as possible. We follow the architectural standards in Cleveland Heights, but you're going to have to adapt. But there is ways we want that to all look cohesive in a neighborhood, right? But some of the designs that we've thought about in going to some of the questions you had is having designs that have first floor bedrooms and bathrooms and things like that our seniors can't find currently in Cleveland Heights, and being able to use those so that whoever does the infill will have that at their disposal to use. We want to cut costs. We want to make it quick. We don't want to take years and years and let these lots sit. So
do you have a plan of how many different designs?
We're looking at about 5. Right now the committee is looking at zoning, and they're also going into the neighborhoods where the infill lots are and looking at the style and what's there now, so that when we work with the architect that they fully understand that we want houses that reflect the character of Cleveland Heights, but also have these amenities that are important in a modern house or in which stage of life you're in.
Thank you.
If I may, when you're looking at that, keep in mind affordability.
Right.
Don't over-design, because then as you get higher, you eliminate that many more people.
Right.
I'm sure you're all aware.
I agree. And it's what we look.
Affordability, especially with interest rates today, is key. Standardization of plans is what you're doing, that's great, and that leads to affordability, because you can either do panel houses where the walls come in put together, not prefab, but the walls are put together.
Well, and that's why we're looking at the lots in these different neighborhoods, because you're absolutely right. Even when we rehab a vacant, we have to look at what the houses are going for in the area, so that we're not overbuilding or the developer isn't putting too much money and can't make a little profit. The profit margin's already low enough.
Keep in touch if you want some input, we'd be glad to provide what we can.
Yes, I would love that.
So we're almost, we're almost, yeah, I'm gonna do that. We're almost running out of time. I've only scheduled this for 2 hours, so I really want to hear from our 2 other CDCs real quick of what your 2024 plan or wish is.
You know, our current plan is to do at least 4 houses this year for new construction. Once those ARPA dollars are received, we have 3 rehabs that we are working on as well. We would love, prior to this, our pipeline came directly from the land bank. We didn't receive any homes from the city. And that particular pipeline has, because of the cities changing in CIC, we no longer receive any homes from the land bank. And so, we've received dollars from the ARPA funds for rehab, but we're still wondering, is there a possibility to receive homes from the city or to receive homes from the land bank? So we haven't received any information on if that process is going to open up, or if Cleveland Heights is going to continue to receive all the houses from the land bank. So right now we have 3 homes that we're working on in terms of the rehab, 4 for the new construction, and
How many homes would you like to complete in renovation by end of 2024?
in addition to what we have, or in terms of receiving homes from the
In
city?
addition to what you have? I don't care where you get it from, I just want to know what is your goal?
That was the lane I went down.
The thing is that right now,
What would be the goal?
because of those funds from from ARPA, we now can leverage those funds to receive lines of credit, so we can do as many homes as as the city would like to give us. We now have avenues in terms of doing it. We can work with homes where people they currently have occupancy in them, but they have been deeded over to the city right now. So we have a program to deal with those properties, so that they could leave with respect and dignity, and then again also the vacant ones. And again, as was said at the council meeting, that the longer the city hangs on to them, the worse they're going to get. The last 2 we received had holes in the ceiling, and those came from the land bank.
So how many? Give me a number.
Give you a number?
Yep, Christine gave me 25. How many can you rehab?
In 2024?
Yes.
Seeing that it's March, 10.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm Keisha. Our Home Repair Resources Center's space is repair. And we stay in that space for the most part. We've worked very well with the Building and Housing Department and the administration through a transition of government in which they were working out how they were going to acquire and deal with and manage vacant and abandoned properties. We've been a partner in that, and we've been able to rehab 18 homes. But again, that's not our space. Our space is supporting homeowners and their repair efforts. And what we've strategically been working on, whether it be within the city or in other places, is where new development occurs, we reach out to those folks who have existed in those homes and say, we care and we want to support you. So I seek funds, whether it be through ARPA, philanthropic, our annual donations, federal funding, to be able to fund home repairs for those projects. So in regards to development, we want to support development, obviously, in the city, but our lane is repair. And while we've been in that space of rehab and still, may vie in that space, we've been successful for 53 years in doing what we do. And so where there's an opportunity to support homeowners, we are going to be working with ARPA dollars with the planning department in their strategic vision in the Noble area. And we want to see intentional impact with repairs. So we want to work in the Noble area. So when you look at analytics and data, you can say, Woodview, Elbon, these are the streets and the homeowners that have been impacted through ARPA, through CDBG, through home repairs, through our organization. Then we'll move to different areas because there's a lot to be done here. And we have all these players in the room, and that's great. But Home Repair Resource Center is successful because we are a Home Repair Resource Center. Mm-hmm. And we do what we do, and we do it well. And we've been doing it well for 53 years. So I appreciate all this conversation around this, about talking about things. But I also want to say in the presence of this group that I'm very confident in our administration and the vision in which they have to bring developers into our area, bring folks like this into the room, right? And while I know we are talking about all these processes, but sometimes in this space, we have to let things work, and that's why I think, in my statement, staying in our lane, we've been able to be so collaborative with the administration because we allow them to work. And I'm a nerd. I watch all these meetings, at my office all the time. I watch committee as a whole. I know what's going on without having to stand in the way of what Eric, what the mayor, with all the other departments are doing. And so I guess I'm here to say, great, this is great. And what was been done in the past and what comes of this, I look forward to. But, creating layers and conversation about conversation creates layers and it creates challenges. It creates red tape. So then Eric and the mayor and everyone else can't do what they do. And so I would just hope that, all this conversation actually leads to providing, yes, kind of a little, thought bubble for the administration to work, but doesn't get in the way of that. And we don't know if we're going to do any houses. It's all based on the plan of the administration and how they see us fitting into that. And our services go beyond the city limits, and that's a good thing. You know what I mean? That's a good thing because we're looking at ways other people are doing what we do out in other spaces so we can improve it in the city. So that's kind of my spiel.
So your goal is focusing right now in the Noble area and then moving from different communities, or did I?
Our goal is to support homeowners in Cleveland Heights. And strategically, while the planning department is going through their corridor study, working with them and trying to get ways to be able to help them implement that. So that's our goal. So we don't have any numbers. We're just going to keep doing what we do.
That's great. That's great. That's great. And I still want to reiterate, make it very clear again, this is not to put blocks up for the planning and development staff or the mayor. This is truly to be helpful, to be inclusive, and to help move the city forward, and however we can do that. If we can't do it, then we can't. Nothing hurts failure but a try, right? But I just want to keep it very clear that this is nothing to go against or to block or to stop anything that the city is doing. It is to help enhance it and make the city and the residents feel well and happy about where they live. So
Oh, I didn't think that this was.
No.
I wasn't trying to imply that. I was
No,
just saying that.
no, I just like to keep reiterating that because I don't want people to just arbitrarily think that, and this is another layer or something else is happening that we don't know. So I want to be very clear and transparent that this is what this is about and trying to keep us on target. But I'm very happy that you all are willing to participate. Do you have the next meeting for May 1st? Is everyone available for May 1st at 10:30? I'm quite sure the meeting won't be as long, but I have a planning and development meeting scheduled for, basically, we'll talk about which day is that after this meeting. And maybe you all can think some things through, give some feedback. And Mr. Pittman, thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself real quick and then we're going to adjourn.
Good afternoon, I think it is now, everyone. I'm Breon Pittman, I'm the tax commission at Brown's office. As well as affordable housing issues that are happening within the district, not only in Cleveland Heights, but all over the district. And some very good topics that were discussed here as it relates to development and planning. I do hope that we keep in mind, as the gentleman over here said, as we're architecting and planning, we make sure that the demographic and financial area of responsibility people have, it doesn't swell to the point, because we're seeing that over on the west side right now.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for being a part of our group.
Absolutely.
So you all are dismissed. The two of us have one piece of legislation that we need to discuss with Director. And we will see you again on May 30th. Thank you. So we're pausing just for the people who are watching. We're pausing for 1 minute as our guest leaves, and we're going to discuss one piece of legislation that was referred to our committee. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maya.
Hi, thank you.
See you, man. Say hi to Ryan for me.
Bye.
Yes. Yes.
Are they willing to let property taxes go for 30 years? So they have not voted on it. So that may if they say no, it doesn't happen in the city.
Wait a minute. Director. Why would they do that? All right. Excuse me, gentlemen, we gotta continue. You're more than welcome to stay and listen.
Get out of here. You created this juggernaut. I'm trying to get all this information.
Well, see, that's the networking.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
See you later.
Okay, Director, you're on.
Yeah, let me turn it over to Brian to walk you through this piece of legislation.
Okay.
This is the tip, correct? Yes. Okay. So yeah, this sort of, as the process requires through the ORC, sets up and establishes the TIF that was approved as part of the development agreement in the exhibit form. It works out. There's some differences, but essentially the way it works is this is a TIF where it's 30-year TIF. 100% where it goes into the TIF fund, and from there the funds get distributed 24% to the schools, 6% to the city, and then 70% to the developer, which they use to help as part of their debt service on the construction loan. to do the renovations at the Taylor Junior project. So, so the 24% does equate to the same amount that the schools got at the Cedar Lee Meadowbrook project. You know, it's, you know, the way we did it was a little bit different as far as doing the math, but to get to the same point. For example, at Cedar Lee Meadowbrook, the schools, the way it was worded is the schools were getting 34% of their normal portion of the property tax bill. So if you do the math, 34% of the school's normal 70% works out to 24%. So that's how we landed on the 24% here. So again, the only significant difference is the city is now getting a small sort of in recognition of, you know, we do have some not insignificant infrastructure, streetscaping, road improvement, Kane Park items that will all, you know, what we'll be doing as part of this and hopefully future investments as well.
Do you think the school district is okay with all of this?
We have every reason to believe so based upon everything we've heard.
Okay.
And their meeting is coming up on
tomorrow.
Oh, great. And this is basically what you have talked to us about already. And so I don't have any further questions. Go ahead.
Yes, quick question. The income tax sharing provision, has anyone done any ballpark calculation as to how much the school district will be getting as a result of that?
On the total figure?
I'm just curious.
Let me find the right number. Hold on a second here. So the projected total construction payroll taxes for the project comes up to about $350,000. Okay. Which would then be subject to that 50-50 split.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions. I would move that we recommend passage of this ordinance to all of City Council.
I second. All right, so we will move this legislation to the Committee of the Whole, I guess, for the next council meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so very much. And can we stay for a couple minutes? All right, to our audience, that concludes my first Planning and Development Committee, which took 2 hours and 15 minutes, but it was a great discussion. And hopefully we will move forward on some of the things we talked about. And everyone have a good evening.